calling this meeting of the Harwich Planning Board to order. It is being held in person, although it's also available as a live broadcast on Channel 18. And members of the public with an interest of any portion or specific item in the agenda should plan for in-person attendance. So those of you who are watching, and you want to hop in your cars, this is the time to do it. We have a recording notice to open this meeting that, according to Mass General Law, anybody who intends to record the meeting must first notify the chair, who will then inform the other attendees at the start of the meeting. Is there anybody who wants to record the meeting? No. Okay. Would you all please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all. We are now opening the public hearing part of the meeting. And we start with the first item is a continued item from December 13th and the 27th. It's John Carey, PB 2022-24, owner applicant, seeking a site plan review and approval to use special permit for multifamily conversion with waivers pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, sections 325-51Q and 55. The property is located at 5 Bells Neck, Assessor's ID 10-G1 in the RM zoning district. Good to see you back, Mr. Riley.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. John will be doing the presentation tonight. I'm the supporting personnel.
So I appreciate you guys having me back. Back in December, we discussed the 10 units that we're proposing, and you guys asked for some revisions specifically regarding details with lighting, landscaping, curbing, fences, and sidewalks. I provided those to the planning board, and hopefully you guys got them.
Yep.
And I did print them larger for you guys.
Thank you.
So I hope those are helpful. And then the one thing I am asking is for 60 days for the drainage calculations and the rest of, it's a full package of civil plans, which are moving forward, but they're expensive and they take forever. And so I guess tonight I'd be asking for a conditional approval pending those plans submitted to your engineer and review and obviously acceptance of those plans. But anything else I'm happy to discuss with what I've sent you guys.
Okay. Anybody wish to open up? Craig?
Did Paul have anything?
Paul, yes, excuse me, Paul, let's go with you first here.
Good evening. Back on December 21st, the chairman and I met with Mr. Carey on site. He gave us a tour of the property and the building. It's an interesting old schoolhouse building with a lot of character, and I can see why he's interested in restoring that and putting it back to productive use. We discussed some of the site improvements that were going to be made, and during that meeting, he asked if it was possible for the board to take action on the plan, and then as a condition of approval, he would then have the stormwater management design prepared by the project engineers and would submit that later as a condition. We discussed that and said that he could request that the board be flexible on that. And so that's one of the things that we need to focus on this evening. He did submit some revised plans on January 5th and had the engineers add some detail to the plan and some additional landscape plantings to the lighting and landscape plan. So we do have some additional details on the fence and so forth, and the lighting that's being proposed for both the exterior of the building and the site. So that's pretty much what happened since our last hearing, and I'll pause there and answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you.
Paul, do you know, does the stormwater management plan have to be approved by the selectmen, or is that some other stormwater?
That's a good question. So I understand that the Board of Selectmen serves as the permit granting authority right now for stormwater. There may be like a triggering threshold of a certain size project that would trigger that. To be safe, I'm gonna say yes, I think that the Board of Selectmen may need to grant permission for stormwater permit, and that is probably another permit that they need to apply for. The town's been advertising for a town engineer, and I think once the town's able to bring an engineer on board, that permit granting authority will probably go from the selectmen to the town engineer. Really, it requires a civil engineer to review drainage designs. It's not something that I have the expertise to do, and so one way or the other, an engineer's gotta review the stormwater design after it's been submitted.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe the stormwater, it's really part of the federal plan, federal program, and I believe it's if you disturb more than an acre, which we are under. So obviously, he needs to be able to take care of drainage and stuff. I just don't think we actually need a stormwater permit like you would in the subdivision, for instance.
I can follow up on that and verify that.
Follow-up to that, I don't know if this is a parliamentarian or legal question or other, but can we approve the plans tonight conditionally on assumed approval of the stormwater management plan when we are not the ones that are in control of that? In other words, can we step in front of the selectmen on that? Or is that part of the question?
I think the board could condition a site plan approval, special permit, making a requirement that within a certain time frame, and we really don't want this to get away from us. I think a shorter time frame, like 30 or 60 days at the outset, he would be required to submit final site plan with any remaining details in addition to the stormwater. But I think for the most part, it's a fairly straightforward project and a simple site plan. So I think the board does have that authority to be able to approve it with making that a condition if you want to be flexible and work with him to go forward with the project.
Thank you.
Emily or Dave, do you have any questions? Dave,
I do not.
All right, do you want to try that again? I heard something, but I didn't hear.
Emily does not.
Okay, all right. And Dave, you're good? You're muted.
You're muted.
So you must be very good.
Can't hear you.
I can't hear you. You gotta turn the mute off on your computer. Oh, I don't know what to do.
2, 3, 4.
Some people were not born for the technological age.
Right. Yeah,
I have a question.
yep.
We do not need second means of egress for the apartments on each floor?
Wasn't that addressed last time?
Yeah, the building's sprinklered, so you don't need second means of
Okay.
egress.
Gotcha.
Both buildings will be sprinklered. And then one other comment on the civil, the town of Harwich has a stormwater management design standard or code, or whatever it is. And Baxter and I will be designing the drainage to that, whatever Harwich is requiring, whether it's 25-year, 100-year. So it's gonna be whatever Harwich's mandates.
And did I understand this correctly from last month's meeting that there's actually a decrease in the surface area of the,
Yeah, we're gonna reduce the asphalt from what's there today to what will be there ultimately.
so it's almost kind of a moot point. I think if it's
Yeah.
been standing as it has and without complaint for, 75 years.
Yeah,
It is, I
I don't know of any issues, no one's complained since I've owned it, and when it does rain hard, there's no real runoff or anything. It's a pretty flat lot, which is nice.
Just a question, we're looking, right now, you're doing this in phases, you're gonna do the big building first, and then come back for the second, or do you want?
So it's gonna be, for planning board, it's one project. From constructability, I will renovate the first building first, it'll just be sequenced, but it'll be one project. It's
we're-
called 2 phases, but it's just for me.
So we're approving the
Oh.
2 right now.
Yes.
Yep.
Got it.
Yes, Greg?
As a follow-up to that, I think the last meeting, we had a conversation about that, and there was some discussion based on finances at the time, whether you would do the second building at the same time as you're rehabbing. I would assume it would be more economical when you got heavy equipment in there and doing whatever has to be done. But as you explained, based on the finances, you may not either find you want it, have a need, or desirous to do it at that time and maybe sometime in the future. And I just wondered if there was something, a stronger commitment that we could get that those are gonna be built, because the emphasis is, as we know, on workforce housing, or whatever the terminology we wanna use.
Attainable apartments.
What is it?
Attainable.
Attainable, okay.
Um,
So rather than
Yeah, we are gonna
7
do-
and maybe 3
We
more.
are gonna do all 10. I've been speaking to 2 different banks, and they wanna structure it all together, and so it will all happen at once.
Great.
Great.
Bill, you had
My
another-
second question is, are you still going ahead with the solar system on the roof?
See, here's the problem, Bill. You know, there are some of us who are old, like myself, and sometimes we have difficulty dealing with the future. But, I mean, from, from climate change and economics, with all due respect to
It's not-
looking at the old roof, I think that the end result of having solar panels on the roof is better for our grandchildren.
Okay, so my experience with the solar roofing so far has not been great.
In what way?
And, well, people are having problems with figuring out what they're getting paid back, and unless you buy your own, install your
I'm
own.
gonna buy my own,
Yeah.
and my electric
So-
bill in Harwich doubled from last year, so, whether or ultimately, it's a perfect southern-facing roof,
Okay, so you are buying your own.
so I will buy my own eventually, so, yeah, there probably will be a solar roof at some point.
Good. And you are doing, looks like you drew in a brick facing on the foundation.
Yep, historic,
Good, thank you.
asked for that, and so we'll be doing that.
Well, you asked for it. That's really why we want to do it, Bill.
Yeah, I know.
We discussed it.
Are there any other points to make?
I just had a question. I think, Paul, in one of the things we talked about the previous week, and you mentioned that there was more detail provided about the fencing, and I can't put my hands on it right now, but
Saw some in there.
It's here.
It's on the
It's in the,
detail page.
I don't know what page it's on, but
It's a standard 6-foot cedar, with a cap. A very nice
With
fence.
the
vertical,
cap.
it's
With the
okay.
stockades.
C50.
Good place to stick solar panels.
This one from the side.
okay, thank you.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. I usually don't, make a comment on any of the projects unless it's directly relevant to a concern that's in a plan or what have you, and this is more kind of a strategic look at what it is that we do as a board and how do we want to go ahead. And this has gotten quite a good bit of attention in the news, as you all saw. And I think it's important for us to consider, weigh things out. And as far as I can see, the benefits outweigh the risks by about 5 to 1. And let me give you what I think the risk is that we're setting up a precedent for kind of conditional approvals. Now, I think what the risk here is a small risk, but we don't know what the future is gonna be. And Paul and I talked about this at some length. I do think that risk is something that we want to face in a more civic-minded way. And two members of the Board of Selectmen have talked about this, I guess, about possibly altering and maybe having the planning board and planning department get behind language to change the code so that this would become not as risky as it would appear to be in this individual case. So that's the one downside. I'd like to also discuss what I consider the 5 upsides. First of all, is that it represents, in a very important way, in a kind of symbolic, more than a symbolic way, this represents capital investment. That is a higher risk that's being taken by the person the individual who's doing the work. So capital investment is one important and telling thing that's going to kind of echo out. It shows, confidence and commitment to a process and to a place, and particularly a place that, here's a guy that sees value here, where nobody has for decades. So I think that's important, that capital investment. I think it's also, the big banner thing is it's housing stock, and that's what everybody's gathering around. Well, housing stock is important, but capital investment is on top of that. That's another great thing. I also think that we're going to see a certain amount of civic engagement once we get people moving through this part of town. That has a corrective. If you've ever read Jane Jacobs on the Life and Death, or Death and Life of Great American Cities, it's like when you have people, and especially a certain increased density of people, there's a beneficial effect on civic conduct. This is a great side light. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about it. I certainly have. And the other thing is that it's a great example of preservation at work. This is not in the protected district. This is, again, overhang. This guy's over the edge and doing something that's going to be, again, part of a precedent, a positive precedent. And I think this is where we want to help the town see the light, that housing stock, capital investment, and preservation, it's like a trifecta. We should be encouraging this with people that don't have a lot of capital, shouldn't be required to put, mid-5 figures on the table to get, approval. But they should be able to see if the concept works, and this is what we're trying to do, like proof of concept. So that's my 2 cents worth, and he didn't pay me anything to say this is strictly my own, but I seriously, I really do think this is this could be a landmark thing. This could be a opportunity for our town to leverage a lot of these extraneous buildings that are kind of scattered and dotted throughout, like South Harwich, the center, North Harwich. This is a great way to leverage this. So anyway, that's my point of view. And if there's no other comments to be made, I would certainly entertain a motion, unless our planner is looking at me with a...
Mr. Chairman, I also want to mention that the
Gimlet
board did
eye.
receive some correspondence.
Oh, yes.
There's a letter dated December 23rd from Housing Assistance Corporation in support of the project. And there were some neighbors that had emailed me with some concerns, and I think we put copies of those emails back and forth in your packet so you can
Right.
see the discussion.
Yep.
I wanted to make sure that those were noted for the record.
Yep, those are in the pack on the website, so they're part of the public record. So with that said, again, Dave, it looks like we've got you in a different scenario, and it looks like you are both may be muted. If you want to speak now, unmute, or forever hold your peace.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I was having audio problems with my phone and the computer, so this is a technology that I've been using for some years, so I'm not unfamiliar with it. It just was a technological glitch in my phone.
Good to have you. Did you have any comment on this first item?
No, but I do want to let you know that I did not receive a packet in the mail. So Sheila sent me the packet as an attachment, and I only had a short period of time to review it, so I just received it this afternoon.
Okay.
So I may be doing more listening than anything else tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Emily, was there any? No? Okay,
No, I'm all set, thank you.
thank you. Was there anybody from the public who wanted to pipe in? If so, please address step up to the podium and give us your name and address.
Good evening, Julie Kavanaugh, citizen and Board of Selectmen. I think it's a fantastic project you're taking on, and to all the points you've made, Mr. Chair, I think they're all well received by the community, I think. And if there's any need to, if you can move forward, whatever way the board feels, to condition it with the drainage to be submitted, I think that, to Attorney Riley's comment, as the stormwater permits that I recall reviewing, they were for subdivisions only. But if they were to be even approved by the board, if there's any other particular legal reason that we would need to, we would be sending it to VHB until we get an engineer anyway. So, I can't speak for the board, but I think that would be the route that we would go anyway. So, and he wouldn't get his official approval letter without that. So, I would just say that it's a fantastic project. Somebody has taken on a building that has sat for, I don't even know how many years, ever since I've been on the board. So I'd love to see it move forward. So, thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kavanaugh. Any additional, anybody online? Okay. I will say again, I would entertain a motion.
I don't have the document with the conditions. Normally we
The
have.
summary of findings,
Is that it?
I think this is what we were going to work with. No. Yeah, where was that staff report?
Paul, did you have something that
Was
had
it more recently?
boilerplate, not boilerplate conditions, but
I didn't write anything up, but I can help out with that.
Sheila, I have the original one you guys sent me back in November. Is it different?
The original staff report?
Yeah.
I don't know whether we've changed anything.
Well, that's what we're going to have to do, is just actually, can I take a look at that? And maybe we can,
Yeah, it's just. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm seeing on page 5 of 6 in the original staff
Yep.
report,
Right.
some findings,
yep.
and looks like a motion.
5 or 6.
So we have a vote to adopt proposed findings, and this is going to be, by the way, a roll call vote. So I'm going to need to hear you vocally, Dave, and 9 proposed findings, and we also have a vote on the special permit with conditions, which is the second item. And then for the review of the special permit is the third vote. So can I just, do you all have this document?
I don't. Looks like,
So I think we all should probably have a quick look at it.
do you want me to make a motion and read it?
Yeah, and let's go through it kind of carefully so we don't have to go back, because this is one of the, Mary will be here, but she's running late. I was thinking she might be here by now, but
Yeah, we were hoping.
still heavy lawyerless, so why don't we?
You want me to, okay.
Oh, there's always a lawyer present.
Oh, there's always, excuse me. From our side, though.
Oh, well, naturally, we're here for the good of the town.
True.
Go. Okay, so I'll make a motion to vote to close the public hearing.
I have a motion, a second.
Second.
I have a second. Ms. Tucker? Let's see, Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Aye.
Ann Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
Dave Harris,
Aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. The public hearing is closed.
Make a motion to vote to adopt the proposed findings, to adopt the following finding of fact. Number one, the property is located within the R&M, R-M zoning district. Number two, the existing structure has been vacant for many years. Number three, 10 apartment units are proposed, all of which meet the minimum floor area requirements. Number four, appropriate and adequate parking shall be provided on the subject site. Family use is allowable within the R-M zoning district with a special permit. Number six, the use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Number seven, the specific site is an appropriate location for such a use. Number eight, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Number nine, adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use, including appropriate sewage treatment.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. All in favor, please vote on the roll call. Bill Stoltz.
Aye.
Craig Chadwick.
Aye.
Ann Clark.
Aye.
Emily Brody.
Aye.
Dave Harris.
Aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. Motion is passed.
So, I'll make a motion to vote on the use special permit. And, would this be where the
Number two.
condition
Number
goes?
two.
We would be
Number-
going with number two.
Number two, where the conditions would go?
Yep.
Number two, to approve with, vote on use special permit. To approve with conditions, case number PB 2022-24, John Carey, for a use special permit for multifamily use pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich, Section 325-51Q, for the property located at 5 Bells Neck Road, map 10, parcel G1 in the R-M zoning district, based on the aforementioned findings of fact and the fact the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich. The following conditions are imposed. Number one, a passing Title V inspection be submitted to the Health Department prior to any building permit approval. Number two, this decision shall be recorded at the Barnstable Registry of Deeds. And is this where our condition would go for the stormwater?
Stormwater.
60-day.
And number three, that the applicant has agreed to submit a stormwater permit request before the appropriate board for the town of Harwich within 60 days of the approval of the planning board.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Stoltz. All in favor, please vote by the right sign. Bill Stoltz.
Aye.
Craig Chadwick.
Aye.
Ann Clark.
Aye.
Emily Brody.
Aye.
Dave Harris.
Aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. Motion passed.
And make a motion to vote on the site plan review special permits. And an affirmative vote by at least 5 planning board members is required for this motion. To approve with conditions, case number PB 2022-24, John Carey, for a use special permit for multifamily use pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich, 325-51Q, for the property located at 5 Bells Neck Road, map 10, parcel G1 in the R-M zoning district, based on the aforementioned findings of fact and the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich. Following conditions are imposed. Number one, a passing Title V inspection be submitted to the Health Department prior to any building permit approval. Number two, all signage shall comply with the sign code, historic district, and historical. Number three, any changes to the approved site may require additional review and approvals from the planning board. Number four, this decision shall be recorded in the Barnstable Registry of Deeds Number 5, conformance with all review procedure requirements outlined pursuant to Section 400-18G, inspection certificate of completion, and as-built plans of the Code of the Town of Harwich shall be met.
Prior to advancing, the final word in item 2, condition 2, is Historical Commission. Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote. Please vote accordingly. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Aye.
Ann Tucker Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
Dave Harris,
Aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. You're all set?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time and your help.
My pleasure.
Thank you guys very much.
We'll see you shortly. Yeah, right. It's a darn good thing, too. Thank you. Second item in our public hearing for this evening is a continued case number PB 2022-26, Eastward Companies, William Marsh President, is requesting an alternate access permit for Lot 10 in the Bascom Hollows subdivision with frontage on Orleans Road. The application is pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, Chapter 325-18P, and Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 16. The lot is located at map 97, parcel B2-16 in the R-R and W-R overlay zoning districts. And who do we have presenting? Is it Susan? No.
Susan,
Yeah.
can't hear you.
Susan, you have to unmute. We are still,
It shows she is unmuted.
Looks like she is, yeah.
well, maybe the volume's down. Maybe you can turn the volume up.
Oh, there it goes, maybe.
Or system volume, or app volume, I don't know. There's so many variables.
No
It's-
kidding, yeah.
Caleb, help her out.
Yeah, great idea.
Okay.
Then the sound will work and we'll get reverb.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Here's Mary.
And along came Mary.
Oh, good.
Long day, huh?
Sorry about that.
Not to worry. Glad to have you here.
Glad you're
We're
here.
on our second item. We're just opened the public hearing portion for Bascom Hollow.
All right.
And, Susan is trying to call in and get some audio here. Dave, there's the feedback we were all looking for. Maybe you could turn the, yeah.
Hear me? Okay. Turn it down. Is that better?
It's still a little echoey. Maybe turn off the sound in the computer. And just use your dial-in.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
not to worry. Problem solved.
Great. Susan Ledoux from Eastward Companies, representing our request for an alternate access special permit for 1512 Orleans Road. We are before you tonight with our site plan for the lot and the proposed house, a recorded A&R plan that the board signed in 2021. The plan with the address and parcel numbers, the assessor's map, and aerial and street view of the subdivision and the lot. And the attached site plan shows the subject lot at 1512 Orleans Road has the required minimum road frontage of 150 feet on Orleans Road. And this serves as the building lot's legal frontage. So per the bylaw, we're required to gain our access to the new house from our legal frontage. And this lot also has 35.88 feet of frontage on Bascom Hollow. The lot has 43,500 square feet in lot area, which meets the minimum required lot area size in the RR zone, and it's also located in the Zone 2 area. And as I said, the lot was created by an approval not required plan that the board signed in 2021. And our request is being made tonight because Orleans Road is a major thoroughfare in East Harwich with a speed limit in this area of 45 miles per hour. And we feel that Lot 10 or 1512 Orleans Road should be developed with its orientation toward the rest of the Bascom Hollow subdivision, similar to the other homes or lots on the street. The proposed draft site plan shows that installing a driveway off of Bascom Hollow will give the home and future residents more privacy from Orleans Road and allow for the maintenance of the existing natural buffer. The proposal will do the following. It will eliminate the creation of a new driveway opening onto Orleans Road, thereby reducing the potential number of access points on the roadway and additional potential conflicts with traffic on this roadway. Maintain the naturally wooded area as a buffer at the front of this lot at its Orleans Road frontage. The proposed driveway opening onto Bascom Hollow will fit into the existing fabric of the subdivision and neighborhood character, and vehicles from Lot 10 will be entering Bascom Hollow at a reduced speed and will enter Orleans Road at the existing wide subdivision road opening with plenty of sight distance on both directions on Orleans Road. We feel that the planning board, the proposed shared driveway alternate access will be superior to creating an additional driveway opening onto Orleans Road, as well as using the existing subdivision road as access to the main roadway, create less disturbance to the topography of Lot 10 and maintain the natural buffer from Orleans Road, maintain the rural character of Lot 10 and not be more detrimental than the creation of a driveway out to the busier street, and provide a safer access to the proposed home on Lot 10 from Bascom Hollow. And I believe that we met all the requirements as far as submission items, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Susan. Paul, did you want to weigh in with the staff comments?
I reviewed the application for alternative access, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The bottom line is it'll be safer for the residents to come and go off of the quieter subdivision road than Orleans Road. There were some conditions that were recommended, and one related to maintaining a 16-foot high by 16-foot wide access way for emergency response vehicles. And I had thrown in another recommended condition about trying to maintain a natural buffer along Orleans Road frontage that could be, 10 feet wide or maybe a little wider, to just keep that row of trees there to maintain that rural feel of that section of roadway.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I do.
This is Dave. Why was this design not provided in the initial proposal rather than waiting till now?
Susan?
I'm not quite understanding your question, Dave. What do you mean by the original proposal?
I think he's trying to get at why was Lot 10 not, go ahead, sorry. Steal your pen. Go ahead, Dave, sorry.
Yeah, why was this not part of the original design? Why is a change being requested? I understand the rationale, it makes sense. Just curious as to why it wasn't part of the original design.
Well, the original subdivision, if we're going back to the original subdivision, this property was not part of the original subdivision, and that was the reason for the 2021 approval not required plan, because we bought an adjacent lot and incorporated it into, and so when those new lots, either existing lots were reconfigured or new lots designed, this was the way this lot gained its legal frontage on Orleans Road and had sort of a panhandle piece out onto Bascom Hollow. And that was the way that our engineer designed the plan so that we could meet the, the minimum requirements for 150 feet of frontage and 40,000 square feet of area for each lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Duncan?
Bill?
Back to the natural buffer zone of 10 feet. I'd much rather see 20 or 25 off that main road.
Yeah, I would agree if we have it 10.
That makes sense. Is there a kind of a rule of thumb or sort of a guideline on buffer zones?
It's,
Or is it kind of episodic, depends upon like what?
it depends on where you are, and so there'll be a homeowner that wants to have a lawn, and they want to have a certain amount of lawn, and we're saying that there should be a strip left natural, and so it could be whatever the board would like to propose and ask the applicant if they're willing to place that restriction. So 10 feet is about the width of a parking space, to give everybody kind of a rule of thumb. 20 feet is about the length of a parking space.
And just out of curiosity, Susan, is there a continuous buffer in that part that would be, along that part of Orleans Road that would be kind of impacted with a larger or smaller buffer zone? In other words, is there like a continuous band?
It's not an open space subdivision, so if we were not asking for a special permit to allow this alternate access, I think, and Paul can correct me, but I think we'd be able to take down the trees to develop the lot, as long as we met all the requirements of the town. Otherwise, because this is a special permit and you can place conditions on it, we're agreeable to maintaining that buffer, and we actually would love to maintain that buffer for future homeowners, to create as much buffer as we can from the traffic and noise and visually on Orleans Road. So we're, agreeable to do what the board would require.
What I should have asked was, is there a buffer zone that would be contiguous with, I think it's lot 11? So that there would be just continuity?
There are existing trees around the homes on lot 11. That's been there for a long time, so you're probably familiar with it. A little single-story home with a circular drive. So that does have existing vegetation. So it would be contiguous with that. It's
Right.
not a designated buffer area, but it would be contiguous. Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions?
Just for clarification, can we ask for a larger buffer zone, the 20 to 25 feet?
Yeah, we could put that in.
Stipulated.
And we can't do anything related to lot 11 because that's not as part of the condition, is that correct?
Sounds like it, right?
Okay.
Well, if there are no further comments, are there any comments from the public?
Hi, Julie Kavanaugh, a butter. Just curious, is this the lot that, and I'm not looking at the site plan and I haven't looked at it, so I'm just asking, is this the lot that there was owners unknown and that's how we got to the 43,000 square feet?
Susan?
Yeah, that was the lot that was out there, and we resolved the title on that property back in 2021, and that's when we purchased it after resolving the title and came before you with the approval not required plan. And actually, you can see on the site plan, if you have it in front of you, you can see where the former lot lines are across lot 9 and lot 10, and they're dotted. And once once the new plan was drawn, the solid lines are the new lot lines.
So, and the only other question I have on this is that, and I think I think the proposal to obviously access it from Bascom Hollow makes the most sense. The only other question I have here is that obviously this is going to also, is your plan to connect to sewer? Are you planning to put in a septic? How is that being addressed?
Currently, we are allowed by the Board of Health to install a individual septic system on the lot, and we will be connecting to the sewer when it is available.
Okay, yep, that's what I thought. I just wanted to reconfirm. Thank you. I don't really have any other
Yeah,
questions.
you
Originally, when this came to the board, we all followed it in the neighborhood as well, and it was originally, I think, 6 lots. And now it's grown exponentially. So just pointing out, I think that the access is better coming off of there. There's already 7 cuts to Route 39 from the fire station to Bascom Hollow. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kavanaugh. Anyone else online who wishes to address? I think we could entertain
I just have a question as to whether I'm available to vote on this one. Did you take any testimony at the last meeting, or was it just continued till tonight?
I was just continued till tonight.
Okay. Just double checking.
Okay.
You're legal.
I suppose we could close the hearing if this is,
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
we have a motion and a second.
Who was the second?
It was Craig.
Great.
So vote to close the public hearing. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Aye.
Ann Tucker Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
Dave Harris,
Aye.
Mary Maslowski,
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye.
So I move that we adopt the following findings of fact. 1, the property owner, Eastwood Companies applicant, owns the land shown as Lot 10 on a site plan by Clark Engineering LLC, Outermost Land Survey, Inc., dated 11/10/2022. The lot is shown on Assessor's Map 97 as parcel B2-16 and currently addressed as 1512 Orleans Road. This lot was created as a result of an A&R endorsement by the Planning Board in case number PB 2021-08. The land is in the RR zoning district, now further known as the subject property. 2, the property is located in the DWRPD/Zone 2 area. 3, the applicant is preparing to build a residence on the subject property and would like to access the property from its 35.88 feet of frontage on Bascom Hollow Road rather than over the property's frontage on Orleans Road. 4, the subject property has at least the minimum required legal frontage along Orleans Road. 5, the property meets all lot dimensional requirements of the Harwich zoning bylaw for building purposes. 6, to authorize exclusive and principal access from Bascom Hollow Road to serve the property, the applicant has applied for an alternate access special permit under the Harwich zoning bylaw, section 325-18K. 7, the proposed alternate access meets the applicable criteria set out in the Harwich zoning bylaw, section 325-18K and 325-51. A, the proposed access is superior to the access over the subject property's legal frontage. 1, Orleans Road is a high-speed major east-west thoroughfare through Harwich with potential traffic safety conflicts. 2, access from Bascom Hollow Road will allow the applicant to retain continuous existing vegetative buffer and the natural topography on the subject property along its boundary with Orleans Road, in turn helping to preserve the existing desirable aesthetics and character of the surrounding area. B, the subject property has 35.88 feet of frontage on Bascom Hollow Road to allow for a vehicular access drive of sufficient width and construction for the same. C, the proposed alternate access will not adversely affect the neighborhood, is an appropriate use under the circumstances and will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. 8, the applicant's special permit application was filed November 17th, 2022, and meets the applicable requirements of the Harwich Code. Among other things, the application includes Site Plan 8, in parentheses Lot 10, Bascom Hollow, East Harwich, Mass, Map 97, Parcel B2-16, prepared for Eastward Homes Business Trust dated 11/12/2022, Clark Engineering LLC, Outermost Land Survey, Inc. 9, the planning board opened, held, and closed a duly noticed public hearing on the request January 10th, 2023.
I have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stoltz. Any further discussion? Let's take a roll call vote. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Craig Chadwick, aye.
Ann Tucker Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
David Harris,
David Harris, aye.
Mary Maslowski,
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. Findings are accepted.
So I move that we vote to grant an alternate access special permit, subject to the following conditions of approval. 1, that the proposed access for the subject property shall be undertaken and maintained consistent with the plan referenced in the application materials set out above. 2, the decision shall run with the property. 3, the decision shall not be effective until it is recorded with the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. 4, the owner shall maintain the alternate access ways 16-foot high and 16-foot wide traveled way. And 5, the owner shall maintain a natural buffer. Is the board's pleasure 20 feet versus 10 feet?
20 is fine, 25.
25. The owner shall maintain a 25-foot natural buffer / no disturb area along the full length of the Orleans Road frontage.
I have a motion and a second.
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 Thank you. Call vote. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Craig Chadwick, aye.
Ann Tucker Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
David Harris,
David Harris, aye.
Mary Maslowski,
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That ends our public hearing portion of the evening's festivities. We now move on to the public meeting. We have 4 items. The first item is a series of 4 requests for inspection and sign-off on as-bills. This is, the first item is continued from December 13th, 2022. It is PB 2019-13, Main Street Stonehorse LLC, Representative William Riley Esquire, presenting and requesting a review of as-built conditions and sign-off. Mr. Riley was here.
Withdrawn.
It's been withdrawn.
Withdrawn, okay. Withdrawn, I didn't, all right.
Yeah, we just got that late tonight.
Okay. So that is withdrawn. Second item, which is Eastward MBT LLC, trustee of Eastward Homes Business Trust, requests that the planning board release the security funds being held for the lots at Bascom Hollow. That has been continued.
So I move that we continue that matter until our meeting on March 14th, 2022, 23, sorry.
24, did I hear 25?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
Who was the second?
Bill Stoltz. And roll call vote. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Craig Chadwick, aye.
Ann Tucker Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
Dave Harris,
David Harris, aye.
Mary Maslowski,
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. The third item is Eastward, it's PB 20, do I have this right?
Yes.
2002-52?
Yes.
Eastward MBT LLC, oh yeah, trustee of Eastward Homes Business Trust requests that the planning board release security funds for being held for full release of the lots at Caldwell Lane. Has also been a request for continuance until March 14th.
So I move that we continue PB 2002-52 Eastward MBT LLC until 3/14, and I guess I should say no earlier than 6:30 PM.
A motion and a second? Thank
Second.
you. We have a second. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Craig Chadwick,
Craig Chadwick, aye.
Ann Tucker Clark,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
Dave Harris,
David Harris, aye.
Mary Maslowski,
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. And that takes us to PB 2022-12, Eastward MBT LLC, trustee of Eastward Homes Business Trust, requests that the planning board release lots 1, 2, 3, and 5, with lot 4 remaining in the covenant at Turtle Run.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before we move forward to that agenda item, there's, I think, a discussion that needs to take place related to the prior two requests to approve the as-built. We've had our consulting engineers from VHB go out in the field and inspect Bascom Hollow and Caldwell Lane. And one of the things that was noted in the inspection report, and the reports are, I think, in your packets, the stormwater goes into some catch basins and then is channeled into a subsurface precast leaching chamber that allows that holds the stormwater, stores it, and allows it to leach. The leaching chambers have inspection cleanout ports, manhole covers like that, and there's a series of them to allow to go in and clean out the sediment that builds up over time. What the engineers noted in their report was that the inspection covers weren't visible. And this then kind of generated a conversation back and forth between myself and Stephen Rhodes, the engineer from VHB, and with Susan about, well, how do we want to handle that? These leaching chambers are kind of in the front lawns of some of these homes. They're very expensive homes, brand new, and I think some of the homeowners might not want to be looking at a series of steel manhole covers, or alternatively, they use precast concrete covers with like a rebar hook to lift them up. So it's this quandary of aesthetics versus utility of at some point in time down the road, these are gonna need to be popped open and cleaned out with a vac truck to clean out the sediment. Are these intended to be public, town-accepted roads or private roads? Do we know?
We haven't accepted a public way in Harwich in years.
So these are gonna be private roads with a homeowners association that will have to do that maintenance. All right, so at least the town DPW workers aren't gonna be digging up front lawns and, multi-million-dollar homes. But the homeowners association is gonna have to do that. So this question arose, and the engineer suggested that the board have a discussion about this, and Susan and I talked about it, and we wanted to see what the board's, how you wanted to handle this in the future.
Well, to break the silence here, I can only say from personal experience that we've had this condition with our Title V unit, and out in the back, it's a covered area, but it's marked on the plan. So you can pace it off at a certain angle from the corner of a building and, tap, tap, tap with a spike, and you'll hear the lid. So do we want to have, I don't know. It seems like it's a 130-second, 150-second interruption in the workflow. Craig?
Sort of the same comment. Why is this any different than when I have to clean out my septic tank in my yard every 3 years? Either I or the septic cleanout company has to come and expose, and as Duncan said, I've triangulated, so I know where it is, but that's not an uncommon thing, I don't think, with,
Yeah, it is common.
yeah, so.
Mary?
So I think the difference is, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, whether it's a public way that has to be cleaned out and it's Public Works Department that's doing it on a public way, or whether it's a private way and would be the responsibility of somebody else. So I think that was our planner's point in making sure that was addressed and makes sense. I mean, I think as a matter of practice, it would make sense to ensure when that's a situation that it's noted as a requirement of the homeowners association or the developer, in lieu of the homeowners association taking over, they're responsible for marking where those cleanouts are and doing the work to do the cleanout, that it's not the responsibility of the town to do those cleanouts as a part of the stormwater. But I guess my follow-up question on that is, are those cleanouts part of a stormwater permit that's being issued by the Board of Selectmen? Was that a stormwater permit that was issued by them, or was this maybe Susan might know?
I can jump in. Those two subdivisions in particular, Bascom Hollow and Caldwell Lane, were not part of any stormwater permit approval.
Okay. Was it because it was
Yeah.
pre the stormwater regulations, or was it because it was too small?
As far as I know, it was pre the regulation.
Okay.
And just to clarify, we have a declaration of protective covenants with each subdivision that we develop, and a homeowners association, and we do make prospective buyers and new homeowners aware of what is on each lot and maintenance of the road, and that would include the drainage and leaching and catch basins, that they be maintained. So they're not unaware.
Perfect. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
So I guess the follow-up question is, do we want to specify how deep these are allowed to be buried? So should we say they should 6 inches of cover or a foot of cover over those ports is fine, but, we don't want to, that I guess is contingent upon the design and how they were designed to be installed. So it sounds like we're just going to leave that alone, let them be covered over. And I know when septic system design plans are done, they include a tie point. So from the corner of my house to where the septic system is over there, they'll show a dotted line on a plan that says, 25 feet. And I think when we get those as-built drawings, we actually have for these two, that the as-built drawings, it would be helpful to the homeowners to have that noted, that that's, from the corner, that's where it is to start digging around and looking for it.
Mary?
So then perhaps we should just ask, for now, VHB to make sure those are noted on the as-built plans, so that it's readily discoverable, I guess,
Yeah, I
for
think-
lack
I
of a
think
better word.
That's probably the best way to handle it.
Right.
They probably even have the heights on the original plan.
Okay, I think we've discussed that sufficiently, right? I think it's also kind of contingent on the owner. So, I'm sure. Okay, that takes us to, yes, 2022-12 Eastward MBT LLC, trustee of Eastward Homes Business Trans request. The planning board release lots 1, 2, 3, and 5, with lot 4 remaining in the covenant at Turtle Run. Susan, did you want to, I see the paperwork here.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Susan Ledoux from Eastward Companies, representing, and we have, I'm sure you've all driven by this subdivision since we've started work. So it's right off of Route 39, Orleans Road. And since I submitted this request on November 21st, and we did submit the application filing fee, road construction estimate, which was dated November 18th, a inspection report from David Clark, our engineer, and the other required items. We have also, and Paul and I have discussed this, we have installed the binder coat, and so you'll see that, as well as the street sign, taking down the estimated remaining work at around $160,000. So what we've done is similar to other requests we've made in the past with the board, and you've been gracious enough to grant those requests. We are asking for the release. There are 5 lots in the subdivision, a release of 4 of those lots, and allowing lot 4 to remain in the covenant. until we've completed the remaining work. And so if you have any questions, please let me know. And we've gone back and forth with Paul on VHB's report on this subdivision, and did send photos today. We do have silt fence all along the subdivision perimeter, and some of that was in disrepair, and we have repaired that or installed new in place of what was in disrepair, and installed silt stacks at the request of VHB per their inspection report. And they did ask about grates and covers in the catch basins, and we said that we would be installing those once the final coat is installed in the road. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional comments? The planner?
Thank you. I understand that the board has had past practice of allowing a lot to be held back from the release of covenant, and to use that lot as surety to ensure the completion of the roadway and all the associated work related to the subdivision road. I don't want to, I want to make it clear that I'm not casting any aspersions upon the company that's doing this work, that they won't complete the work. I'm sure that they will, and this is a company that has a good reputation in town for doing good quality work. Having said that, as a matter of policy, I'd like to have the board have a discussion and think about whether or not you want to continue that practice. I haven't been involved with a lot of bonds being recalled, but I have been in each of the towns that I've worked in. They're fairly uncommon, but when they happen, sometimes there are already people living on the street, and there's problems with the roadway itself. And if the bond is recalled, we would need to take money and hire a contractor to go in and finish the subdivision. In this case, if the board's holding back a lot, it complicates our ability to get the job finished. I remember years ago, planning boards doing this, but it was about 20 years ago, I think, on advice of town council, that it really isn't a good practice to hold back a lot as surety. If something happened and the bond had to be recalled here, we wouldn't have the funds on hand to go and get this work done. And if push came to shove and the development had safety things that had to be resolved to complete the project, we would be in a position where we would need to somehow acquire that lot. We would need to somehow take it, which would be a legal enterprise. And then once we took title to the lot, the town would have to sell it to raise the cash to go and finish the job. And that is, and we're not realtors either. And so it would put the town in a difficult position. So I don't want to, show up on my second planning board meeting and kind of throw a monkey wrench into what's been past practice with the board. But I wanted to throw that out for some discussion, and maybe at a later time, if the board wants to change a policy on how they handle these surety bonds, it's something that we could discuss further.
Good points, Bill. You've been around for quite some time. Have we ever had to?
No, not that I know of. I've never heard of anybody feeling. We never had to go back in and do it ourselves.
It's kind of a small pond to try and do that, I would think.
Well, I don't think he's gonna wanna lose $300,000.
That kind of money, yeah.
That's what's left.
So, Paul, is that more of a condition where you've got multiple large-scale enterprises, like larger, or?
So I guess in the two most recent ones that I've had to deal with, there were people that were not experienced real estate developers. They wanted to be developers. It was like their first projects to do like a subdivision. And in both cases, they were young men that were trying to become developers, and one thing or another went wrong, and we had to recall the bond. In a more recent case, the town had a joint bank account that was the bond, and this person owed money to the state, and the state reached in and took money out of that bank account, and, you know, town couldn't do anything about that. After that happened, we recommended that the planning board call the bond in. So we recalled it, took the money, and I've spent the last 3 years trying to get the project done because of the increased costs with everything. We put this project out to bid 3 times and couldn't come up with, we didn't have a sufficient bond. And agency money in there, and the cost to complete was done by the town engineer. So it was a tough situation, and it's actually left unresolved. I think the town is gonna have to put money in to get the job done. So it certainly, with a big company like Eastwood, it's really probably not an issue, you don't have to worry about it. But there are other people that wanna do real estate development that may not have the financial wherewithal to complete a project once they've started it. And so that's why I just wanted to kind of share some cautionary recommendations about this for the future.
Mary?
So often it's a bond, it's a letter of credit, I've seen everything over the years. I've seen escrow agreements with bank accounts, joint bank accounts. To your point, they can be hit by DOR and the IRS anytime you turn around. So it might be something that we want to think about. I also, though, think this town made that decision not to kind of accept public ways probably 20-plus years ago. Bill, I'm looking at you when I'm thinking that. So we haven't accepted public ways, any of these ways as public ways for well over 20 years. So that's also a situation where we might not be going in to actually complete everything, right? Like, some of it's gonna fall on the homeowners and the subdivision, so,
Meaning that because we are not planning to
Well, if
accept
it's
this as a
if it's a
town road.
public way, you're gonna, so like, when you're accepting the ways as public, there are all sorts of things the developers have to do. They have to give you the right in the way, they have to give you the fee interest in the way, they have to make sure that everything's upright. One that I can recall, in a former town, it was the catch basins all collapsed. They used wood on top of concrete or something, and the streets all started to have divots in them. So it was already accepted public way. The way had to be, the town had to go and repave and fix.
So in the situation where something like that happens, would the town just walk away?
I don't know that
If
you
it
can
were-
walk away, but you've got a
if it-
bond.
well, if it-
So I would say that,
If it weren't accepted as a public way, since we've not done.
I think the town planner is still telling you that you're gonna have to do some work to finish it, right? So
So we still would,
you're still gonna be out of pocket
Well,
if you don't have funds in hand, so.
in this case, isn't that property, isn't it the association's problem to fix everything on that property? I mean, it's got the green area, et cetera.
Defer to the planner.
So the question is, would the homeowners association have to come in and fix it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it was, especially if it was something, a safety issue, I've seen barrels and cones over sunken catch basins that have collapsed, things like that. I think whether it's a public road or a private road, the residents are still paying the same amount of taxes, and they have the right to live on a road that's of the same quality, a public or a private road. They have a right to live on a road that's well constructed and maintained in the future.
We did at one time have a subdivision that the road was failing after 20, 25 years, and they came to us to get it fixed, and we voted it down.
Right. Well, I think that's the big thing, is that the life cycle of a road is 30 years, right?
Yeah,
And
depending
so
on the
when
traffic.
the wisdom of the town has been that we're not going to incur all those maintenance costs.
Yeah.
Been rolling, every year accrued, with more and more
And
maintenance.
today, we're making them use a better sub-base, better binder, better finish coat than back 25 years ago. They got away with a lot.
Maybe this isn't the one that we start with, but certainly you know,
Well, we could,
our town planner has raised a good point.
yes, he has, and maybe we should, you know, our history is to approve these for the last 25 years I know of. And maybe we should tonight say, let's make it a point to start figuring out what to do
So I think that would,
from this date on.
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think we'd probably have to make some kind of amendment to our subdivision rules and regulations in order to do that, so,
If the regulations are specific in allowing holding back a lot, I know the subdivision control law says that the planning board makes a decision on the form of the bond that it wants to accept, and there are many different forms that are often used. So unless there's something in the local subdivision rules and regulations to the contrary, the planning board does have the control to say, we'd rather have a passbook account or a tripartite agreement or letter of credit or something like that. But I think that, given the circumstances, the board should vote to approve their request to hold back Lot 4. And then if you'd like to schedule a little bit of time to discuss this a little further later, we can. If we want to put something in the subdivision rules and regulations that says we'll no longer be holding back lots as surety, we can do that as well. And that puts the world on notice that, you know, the planning board's changed its practices.
I just have a question. I wonder whether or not any of this was brought up in some of the notes that were taken by the previous town planner in reviewing the code. And if not, that might be an interesting thing for us to be entertaining at the time when that becomes necessary to engage with that document. I think this might be folded or feathered in properly right at that point.
Probably the first thing is to check the zoning laws and see what's in there.
Right.
And then Paul tell us what he thinks.
Is this something that would benefit us to get a legal opinion from town council? Or you guys have enough experience as lawyers and town employees and past experience to know that it wouldn't be of value to us to spend the money for our town attorney to give a recommendation when there's nothing new that they might recommend, given your experience and history?
I'm pretty
crapshoot,
confident
I
about
guess.
this. Got a lot of experience with this, and I think in the back of my mind, this was something that was discussed with town council in
20 years ago.
March, 15 years ago.
So, been there,
Maybe
done
we
that.
ought to just kind of bounce it off administration and select board and see if we can have a consensus on this, because I think it really makes sense.
If it's part of our subdivision rules and regulations, that's
Right.
kind of up to us to notice that we're making changes, and
Right.
I'm sure the town planner would have to be in contact with town council one way or another, either way, if we're entertaining something like that, so. And there's a whole process for changing rules and regulations, public hearings, notices, advertisements, so.
So maybe we ought to put it on the next agenda to have a short discussion, conversation about what Paul finds.
Great idea.
If I may, can I ask one question?
Please.
Do we know what the assessed valuation is of the lot? Because I just note that our,
Lot 4.
yes, because our engineer actually had commented that we should verify the assessed valuation of the lot.
Susan, do you have that?
I don't have that assessed. I can probably could look it up, but I did give Paul a deed for a lot that we recently sold. I believe it was in December in Elijah's Woods, which are similar lots, and it sold for $500,000. So we expect, and we will be marketing these lots similarly, and houses will be similar to those of Elijah's Woods or Caldwell or Bascom. So the value of the lot far exceeds the remaining work value.
Okay,
I would
Thanks,
guess at
Susan.
500,000.
Right.
So shall we proceed with
like a
A
motion.
request, yeah.
So, I move that the planning board votes to release in matter PB 2022-12, Eastward MBT LLC, that the planning board moves to release lots 1, 2, 3, and 5 from the covenant at Turtle Run, with lot 4 to be remaining in the covenant.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stoltz. Roll call vote, Bill Stoltz. Craig Chadwick.
Craig Chadwick, aye.
Ann Clark Tucker.
Aye.
Emily Brody.
Aye.
David Harris.
David Harris, aye.
Mary Maslowski.
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye. Thank you. Last item in our public meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Is PB.
Have a good night.
Same to you.
Sue.
Is PB 2020-27 Next Grid Inc. requested extension on a site plan review special permit to establish a large-scale photovoltaic array for the property at 0 Depot Road, which decision was filed with the town clerk on January 14th, 2021. Who is going to be presenting this?
My name is Aaron Kulig. I'm president of NextGrid. We're requesting an extension just due to delays with Eversource. We do not have our utility interconnection agreement approved, and therefore we can't move forward with the project in the SMART program, the statewide program that sponsors solar. So we're waiting for that Eversource approval, and in the meantime, we're asking for an extension. Nothing is changing in the permit or the site plan. It's purely an extension.
Mr. Planner, do we have any recommendations on this?
Nope, I think if they are requesting an extension, they're still working on the project, what you granted.
Any comments? Mary?
Just a question, when do you expect to have approval back from Eversource or National Grid?
Yeah, it's Eversource, and June has been the date that's been communicated to us, at which point we'll immediately order equipment and go into construction to try to have it done by year end. That would be the ideal situation. Eversource has been known to delay some of these projects, so that's the ideal situation is June.
So would a year extension be sufficient to get you to substantial completion?
We requested a 1-year extension, correct?
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
So I move that we, on matter PB 2020-27 Next Grid Inc., that we vote to approve a 1-year extension for this site plan review special permit to establish a large-scale photovoltaic array for the property at 0 Depot Road until 1/13/2024.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Chadwick. Roll call vote, Bill Stoltz.
Aye.
Craig Chadwick.
Craig Chadwick, aye.
Ann Clark Tucker.
Aye.
Emily Brody.
Aye.
David Harris.
David Harris, aye.
Mary Maslowski.
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry. Aye. Thank you. From Ann. By the way, I want to apologize for mispronouncing your name, because you know what? I have a friend named Tucker Clark
It's okay.
in Harwich Planning. And it's just like, that's only, it goes like automatically. I can't even control it. I'm reading your name,
It backwards. Good
saying
job.
it backwards. I feel like such a moron.
I know the report, I'm gonna refer to it. 2 minutes?
Yep. We have it right here, right? No, right?
Yeah, we have it.
So I want to thank you for your patience with me.
You just took a recess for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
For the next meeting on this Eastwood Plan.
Sorry, we make it more complicated, and then we have cousins that are named Tucker.
Just save all this.
And then another has a name Clark, so we'd make it impossible.
That's what I wanted.
Well, there's Rocky and Tucker and the whole group down there. I don't know if you know them. Are they any related? Yeah, from the Gardens, Rockaway, or
Oh, yes,
whatever it
yes,
is.
yes. That's true.
G. Rockwood.
Exactly.
Rockwood.
G. Rockwood. I think you're supposed to say G. Rockwood.
Thank you.
I'll ask a stupid question. How do you like the Yeti with the straw? Do you like the straw? Do you not like the
It's
straw?
like a car thing. It's like I can't, going over a bump,
Gotcha,
everything.
gotcha.
How about you? Do you like the magnetic sliding thing? Yeah.
I kinda do. Just saying.
Okay.
Good
What's
to go?
that?
Yeah.
Okay, I have the floor.
Yes.
So, first of all, thank you. I actually enjoyed being part of the Capital Outlay Committee, which didn't seem obvious at the time. The purpose of the committee is to advise and consult regarding any capital expense greater than $50K projected for the next 5 years. As a result, we had 8 meetings between October and December and met with 30 town departments outlining their capital needs for the next 5 years. So I learned all sorts of things like how you buy a fire truck and how much tasers cost, which is kind of a racket, so that one I learned about. We had independent site visits to 204 Sisson Road, Allen and Saquatucket Harbors, because there's some very large items coming forward, and to get a firsthand view of this. The process was fact-based, with details, estimates, and when appropriate, bids. There was plenty of room for discussion, and then the committee did advise about what maybe things should be brought forward or put in different years. On December 5th, there was a joint meeting with the Town of Harwich Select Persons and the Capital Outlay Committee. And the committee voted to accept all the items as presented. Now, the big elephant in the room is the wastewater plan that will be coming forward in town meeting. But kudos to the process, because it outlined where the funds for everything that was outlined would come from. What comes from free cash, what comes from grants and different sources. So there was no hidden agendas. It was all out for discussion. So in my corporate life, I was taught how to get ready for an audit and what an audit would mean when your part of the company got audited. And a lot of that is about showing process and control. And during this whole capital outlay work, there was a lot of process and there were points of control. So it was a very thorough and well-done process. Doesn't mean there won't be discussion and had projects coming forward, but it was a very positive discussion, and I can report that if anyone.
Excellent. Thank you very much for a thorough report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
It's 3 years to order a fire truck.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's bad.
That sounds about right.
There are only 2 companies.
And what are they, like a $500,000 or something like that?
Easily, there are
No.
only 2 companies left in the country that make them.
More like $1 million to start.
Million?
Pumpers are about 800,000 now. Ladder trucks are about Probably 1.5 mil now. I think the one we just bought was
And there's no, and there are
1.2.
no used trucks because that market's dried up.
Right.
Ambulances are going for 354.
Yeah.
And it takes you 2 years to get them.
Tell you that, seeing that hook and ladder out, the ladder truck out at the Baptist Church in West Harwich about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I nearly had a heart attack. You know, they were, experimenting, trial run, like, okay, is this gonna work? Apparently, that's one of the higher points in town now.
Yeah.
So, no smoke. I was like freaking out.
It's very eye-opening, but I can also say that the town's money's being well shepherded and spent.
So, one other item, your memorandum, Paul, that was included,
Which one?
draft plan schedule. Is that
The local planning.
for the local planning? Exactly.
Thank you. I met with the local comprehensive planning committee on January 4th, and we discussed a draft schedule that I had prepared to help the board members understand what the steps that need to be followed to get to the point of hiring a consulting firm to update the local comprehensive plan. I think it was a useful exercise for everyone that wasn't really familiar with, procurement of public projects. And it helped them to understand the first phase of getting the plan moving forward. I had offered to draft the RFP and told them that I would get it done by this Friday, and I've got a working draft done now. I need to proof it. Fortunately, my predecessors had already started working on this, and I had a pretty good working draft. I was trying to figure out who did it, and Charlene might have started working on it, but the one that I picked up and moved forward with, I think was dated back in September, that John had worked on. So I've done some editing and a little bit of rewriting, and shuffled around the sections of it so that it followed kind of a logical order for requests for proposals. And what the local comprehensive planning committee decided to do was to appoint a little subcommittee that would work with me on finalizing the RFP, so that we didn't have 11 people trying to wordsmith a 30-page document. And so they agreed to appoint 2 of the planners on the committee to work with me, David Spitz and Margot Fenn. So I'm on track to get that done by Friday for them. They'll proofread it, we'll make some edits, and then we will send it along to Joe Powers. He'll review it and approve it hopefully, and then we'll get it out on the street. We'll advertise it in the Central Register, in local paper, and we will start to look for a consulting firm that can do this work for the town.
Great.
Was, Paul?
Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe you know, was the, at town meeting, we approved the dollar amount to hire the, what are they, consultant to assist the LCP or LPC?
I think in 2019,
Right.
Yeah.
200,000.
200,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And based on my understanding of what the going rate for updating a master plan is, that should be sufficient funding to get the job done.
And that's just to help with the RFP, or that's?
No, that's just
to
the whole
do the-
plan.
Okay.
That's to
And
do the local
it's
comprehensive.
gonna be a 2-year process.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a while, and the committee and I want to do a lot of public outreach and education, and to hold those meetings, and slip them in between things like the annual town meeting and the special town meeting, and the holidays. It'll take a little while to get the whole planning process done. So this is, I think, the first step forward to moving the project forward.
Great. Any other comments, Mary?
Excuse me, not on that. I just wanted to say CBC is continuing to meet. We're meeting Thursday. excuse me, we're continuing to go over our applications, and hopefully we'll have some figures and start voting. If not this week, this meeting, next.
How much money do you have to
I'm
disperse?
not fully sure yet. We haven't gotten our final numbers, so
Do you have a lot of requests for
we
big
have
money?
a lot of requests.
Not
We have a
surprised.
lot in the historic bucket
Yeah.
in particular,
Yeah.
so.
I'm sorry, the PBC,
CPC,
CPC, okay.
Community
all right.
Preservation Committee,
Yep, all right.
Extra money.
extra money, the 3% taxpayer
Yeah, right.
dollars.
Right. Duncan, I've got a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, we've got minutes to approve here, one from October, which, boy, it was like reading a history lesson. I remember this. And then we have one from December 13th. I only saw the misspelling of Ms. Maslowski's name on page 3 of the October 4th meeting. That's the only addition I would make.
Wow. Attachment.
On page 3?
Page 3, middle of the page.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that,
After the vote.
everything looked pretty much like I,
Those were done, I don't even know who did them, but I got them from administration. I could
Alicia probably,
push
yeah.
them To get them and find them.
So I move that we accept the planning board minutes from October 4th, 2022, with the correction of my name and on page 3, and that we further adopt the planning board minutes of December 13th, 2022.
Second.
I have a roll call vote. Bill Stoltz,
Aye.
Greg Chadwick,
Craig Chadwick, aye?
and Clark Tucker,
Aye.
Emily Brody,
Aye.
Dave Harris,
David Harris, aye.
Barry Maslowski,
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Duncan Berry, aye.
Could I ask who seconded that?
I think
Craig
I
usually
think I
did.
did.
Craig.
Yep.
It's usually like one person.
That's right.
No.
They're quick on the draw on this side of the table. So, do we have a full pipeline for our next meeting, which is
January 24th?
the 24th? Yeah.
Right now, we have the Littlefield subdivision coming back,
Okay.
and any other little material that might come in between now and then, but it looks as though that's
it.
gonna be our focus.
Okay, good.
I have a question, but before I ask the question, I want to make sure I can. I know that the Stone Horse request for final site was withdrawn, and I just wondered, given everything we know so far, and there's no CO and all that stuff, one, if you guys had an opportunity to go down there and visit, and if we know anything more about the withdrawal. I notice not a continuance to come back later for some reason,
Yep.
so. I just want to make sure it's okay to,
Absolutely, Paul. I think
Okay.
the three of us met, so I'll let you.
I met with Duncan and Jack Mee, the building commissioner, on site. We did a brief inspection of the property with the as-built in hand. And there were a lot of changes made that weren't on the approved site plan. In looking at the conditions of approval for the project, condition number 1 was any changes need to come back to the planning board for review and approval. And so it was pretty clear cut, that was made very clear as a condition of approval. And it wasn't as if the developer, just made a couple little minor field changes. There were some significant changes that were made. There are some problems that I think need to get worked out. And so we contacted Bill Riley, let him know that they violated conditions of approval of their special permit by not coming back to get approval from the planning board, and that we recommended that he submit a request to modify the approved site plan.
And I think also with a kind of a stringent time guideline, right? Because the clock was running on summer occupancy and that time was of the essence.
excellent.
So I think that was also at least from the building commissioner.
And that was followed up today by a letter from Jack May, the building commissioner, to the owner, mentioning the issue with the site plan, but also trying to, one, request that his inspectors are able to gain access to do an inspection of the building, to make sure that it was built to code. And the letter went on to try to strongly encourage him to wrap the project up and seek final certificates of occupancy. I think that he'll work with us in not issuing a final CO until all of the outstanding site plan modification things have been resolved.
Question. So if he doesn't have this issue of a CO, which is outside of our area, but what's the trigger if it doesn't happen? If these things aren't resolved, does the place shut down for the season, or?
So as we understand, there are people living there now, and it further complicates the situation where the temporary CO had expired.
Right.
And you know, he doesn't want to have to be in a situation where people have to be asked to leave until that's resolved. And so this is why he put it in writing, reached out to the owner and said, this needs to get resolved as soon as possible.
There's an or else kind of piece of this.
Yeah, and the reality of it is, you know, spring will be around the corner. The owner is probably gonna wanna get some more tenants in there, given the situation of the last few years with the pandemic and problems with some of the employees getting visas and things to enter the country to do this work. And so I think the owner is probably keenly aware that he needs to get this stuff ironed out before the summer season begins and he brings in new tenants.
Motivated, is that
He
correct?
is a motivated individual at this point.
Very good. Thank you for doing that, because we had all made separate visits and tried to do this piecemeal, so thank you.
Yeah, some of the changes are gonna be judgment calls and, you know, do we want him to jackhammer up asphalt and build 2 outside patio areas? He just built 1. Some of them are more safety issues, and the example that the building commissioner gave was the walkway down to the dumpster, that there's like a slope like this, and it would be real tough if it was winter and it was slippery. But even, you know, carrying some trash down the slope, it could be hazardous to someone to fall while they're doing that. And so they might have to figure out a better location for the dumpster. And so this is what we gotta take a close look at, what the approved plan looked like, what they built, and item by item. And we'll work on a staff report which kind of lays out the issues and makes our recommendations, but they are gonna probably have to make some changes to what's actually out there right now.
Stay away there too, it's gonna be fixed.
Stay away.
Well, this is Dave Harris. Did they address any of the issues such as the lack of parking and whether or not they want to apply for using the strip of parking that's blocked off now on the east end of the site?
So we did not meet on site with anyone, with the owner. It was just Duncan and Jack and I. We looked at that and we discussed the parking, and from what we understood, there were already some parking issues that had emerged in the summer. And so I think it makes sense where he's got the land available to put in that other row of parking where historically there had been some parking. So I think that'll be something that we need to discuss and encourage him to make enough parking on the site so that tenants or guests of tenants aren't parking out on the side streets.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a significant change in the number that we approved versus the number required, because the idea was the whole
It's like
bicycle thing.
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
It's like 60.
Yeah,
It was a waiver, right? It
large
was a
number.
waiver of the parking requirement.
Yeah, yeah. And that ramp we were talking about, if that ramp was built as the intended to be the ramp for handicap. It's not right next to the handicap spot, but 2 or 3 away. And if you go up at the top of the ramp, you can't get to the building because there's grass between.
And if a handicap, if someone was in a wheelchair and they were trying to take their trash to the dumpster, they wouldn't be able to.
They would make it there, and they wouldn't make it back. I mean, it's like a
Well, they might
30-degree
make it
grade.
right out to Route 28. Thank you.
Okay. So, shall we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Emily Brody. All in favor? Emily?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Duncan? Aye. Greg?
Craig Chadwick, aye.
We are adjourned.